Hi guys, welcome to math. Happy Monday to you. We have quite a complicated lesson to teach you today. Actually, it's simple once you understand it, but I want to take some time to help you understand two different concepts today because you're going to be doing two different math lessons for me today. They're both very related, so I combined them together because I thought it would be easier that way. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to be doing 11.8 and 11.9 today. We're going to be estimating, adding, and subtracting decimals. So the first thing I want to talk about is estimating. The word estimate really means to give a smart guess. You're kind of giving me about what the right answer is. So anytime you see about or estimate, this is what they're asking for, an estimation, okay, a smart guess. And it's not just a guess in the dark like, I think the answer is going to be, no, there's actually a process that will give you the smartest estimate. And this process is called rounding. And we've done rounding before. You remember I told you the story of the rounding rock where if it's 5 or more, then it can roll down that hill to the next number. Or if it's 4 or less, it rolls back down and it stays the same number. I hope you remember that lesson. But I have another little hint here for you. This new one says 4 or below, let it go. 5 and above, give it a shove. So this is a kind of a cool rhyme where we can use it in rounding, and if the number, the neighbor that we look at, is 4 or below, we let it go. We keep it the same number. If it's 5 or above, we give it a shove and change it and add one more to that whole number. All right, so let's do a little bit of this practice. I've started us out with 3.8. So take a look at that top number, and your book is going to want you to round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so I've circled the whole number there, and we will look next door at our next place value, which is the tenths, and it's a number 8. So you should be asking yourself, if you remember this little rhyme I just gave you, 4 or below, let it go. 5 or above, give it a shove. This is definitely 5 or above, so we're going to be shoving the number 3 up to 4. So 3.8 really rounds to 4. That's your answer, okay? Let's do this again. This time 3.08. Let's see what happens. We're rounding to the number 3, so we're going to look at our neighbor, and our neighbor is actually a 0. It doesn't matter that there's an 8 in the hundredths place. What we want to look at is the very next number, and the next number is a 0, and 0 is definitely in that 4 or below category, so we're going to let it go. We're not going to change our number at all. It's going to stay a 3. So 3.08 rounds to 3. Let's do 2 more examples here. The first one can be a little bit confusing because if they want you to round to the nearest whole number, in this case, the whole number is 0. Okay, but that's okay because we're going to look at our neighbor, and our neighbor is a 5. So let's remember that rhyme there, 4 or below, let it go. 5 or above, give it a shove. So we get to give our 0 a shove, and our answer will actually be 1. 0.5 rounds up to 1. All right, let's do this one last time. Our whole number in the bottom is 23. So we have 23.48. We look next door. We don't care about the 8. All we care about is that 4, the number right next to our whole. And that 4 or below, we let it go. So nothing is going to happen to our 23. It's going to stay 23, and it won't go up. It won't round up. There's not enough there. Not enough men come to the hill to push it to the next side, okay? The next thing we're going to be talking about is adding and subtracting decimals, okay? And one of the most important parts about adding is lining up your decimals, okay? So you can see all these dancing decimal points I have, and they, at the end, line up. Number 1, line up your decimals. Number 2, you're going to be adding in some zeros, okay? Because there's going to be some blank spots. Once you get your decimals lined up, there's going to be some empty spots. And in order to make things a little bit easier, you're going to be using some zeros, magic zeros, to hold places. And also, you're going to be using them to regroup when we get into subtraction. So let me show you what I mean. First, I'm going to give us an addition example of a decimal, and we will line those decimals up. And then once we've lined them up, we can add like normal. 3 plus 6 is 9, 2 plus 3 is 5, 1 plus 1 is 2. And make sure those decimals are lined up, even in the answer, okay? And here's a subtraction problem now. We're going to line up those decimals and subtract like normal. 3 minus 1 is 2, 6 minus 4 is 2, 7 minus 2 is 5. Make sure those decimals are lined up. All right? Now for our magic zeros. We have two problems here, an addition and a subtraction, and you see how after we line up my decimals, I still have a gap there. So I'm going to insert a magic zero, and we're going to add like normal. 9 plus 0 is 9, 4 plus 3 is 7, and 3 plus 2 is 5. And make sure those decimals all line up, even in the answer. Let's look at the subtraction problem. I've got my decimals lined up. Then I can add in my magic superhero 0. And then I can subtract like normal. 1 minus 0 is 1. 9 minus 3 is 6, and 5 minus 4 is 1. Hopefully, so far, this seems pretty simple. This is pretty easy addition and subtraction. So let's get a little more complicated. Now we have lining up our decimals. We're good, but we have some weird gaps, guys. So all we need to do is put in those magical zeros and add like normal, okay? So we fill in those gaps with those zeros and add like we would normally add, all right? Now we're going to get into the most complicated part, subtraction. And sometimes subtraction with borrowing. I know, dun, dun, dun. But let's follow the process. We're going to line up our decimals, add in our zeros. Okay, and now that we've done this, we can see that both of these problems are going to need some borrowing. So let me go ahead and take you through this step by step. 0 minus 3, we cannot do that. You can't do it. You have nothing. You cannot give 3 away. So we will borrow from the 4. If I take 1 away from my neighbor there, then my neighbor only has 3. And then I can give that set of 10 to my 0. Now it's 10 minus 3 and 3 minus 3. And you can subtract out. Okay? Let's look at the next problem over. If you look, we have what I called a mansion. You have 0 minus 1. You can't do it. You must borrow. But the next place value over is also a 0. And so in some of your heads, that should mean ding, ding. Oh, I can do a mansion. I can borrow from 7D. And if I take 1 away from 7D, I should be left with, hopefully you said, 69. Very good. And I can give my set of 10 over to that 0 that was needing it. So now it's 10 minus 1, 9 minus 3, and 6 minus 4. And you could subtract down. I do believe that this borrowing process is probably going to be the hardest part of your lesson, okay? So try to remember to borrow from your neighbor, borrow that sugar from your neighbor. Remember how we went over all of the process of borrowing. One last time to review with you. line up those decimals. Zoop. Make sure they're all lined up nicely. And then add in your zeros where you need to have zeros. And then you just add and subtract like normal. So good luck today on your work. Take your time. Adding and subtracting is simple, but it's very easy to make mistakes as well. So good luck, and let me know if you have questions on Zoom.